Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
Blank Gameweek has kind of gone without too much drama in the end, James.
Oh, there was loads of drama in that 3:00 game yesterday, mate.
I meant to DM Steve-O from Elite FPL because he's very good at finding clips from our podcasts. And for the regular listeners, because it's not a Patreon pod, James, we do predictions on our Patreon pod on a Friday. Remind everybody exactly what you said about the West Ham game.
Draw.
Not just the draw. I'm going to upset a few listeners here.
I did say that.
0-0.
0-0.
Poor draw of the weekend.
It's arguably game of the season, actually. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, good fun. But and we're going to get on to talking about the games, but I'll summarize it in as much as we threw away a 3-0 lead and what have you. It was nice to be emotional about football, you know, where you've got all of this VAR killing the emotion of the game and stuff. It was just exciting. It was fun. It was crash bang wallop. So yeah, it was good laugh.
Okay, so we've managed to get through a minute and a half without mentioning Tottenham. Thanks for the dig.
No, we'll get to all the games, won't we? So we will. But yes, FPL. There's only 4 games this weekend, and it felt very weird with such little football. But not only was it only 4 games this weekend, we've got international break now for a little while, so everybody can breathe, regroup, and get ready for the run-in now because we've got 10 weeks left, something like that, 9 weeks left. It's the home straight now, so everybody can start setting their sights on what they want to do. Everybody knows what chips they've got left, and I think by the end of this international break, people will have a little bit more of an idea around chip strategy and that kind of thing, which we will talk about a bit today. So you say?
Yeah, I haven't prepped Suj at all, but yeah, there's some stuff we're definitely going to go over in terms of double game week.
I didn't know if that was sarcastic or not sarcastic.
What, as in briefed you?
No, as in you haven't prepped. You have prepped.
Oh, you know me.
Okay, good.
It's in the noggin, mate.
Good.
How was your game week?
So I ended on 60 points.
Oh wow, well done.
Do you want a title for the podcast, James?
Yeah, please.
I did it by accident.
I did it by accident. You captained Lingard by accident.
I did. I did. I definitely did.
Who were you meant to captain?
Harrison Kane. So what happened was, I ended up on, let me give you a rundown, 60 points. Defense, I don't think anybody picked up any defensive points this weekend, did they?
Yeah, all the boys steaming into Brighton, and obviously free hitters.
True.
Definitely had Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton's the only one because from a Spurs point of view, the only person people went in defensively that I know of that I've seen is Reguilon, or at least he covers 80 to 90% of Spurs defensive purchases. And obviously he got 56 minutes or whatever he did.
Reggie.
Yeah. I only ended up 2 points on Dallas, none from Target, 1 from Areola. But then moving further forward, it was all sweets and cake, mate. Rafinha did well, Souček, Harry Kane, that was 8, 5, and 7. Bamford 11, Jesse Lingard 24 points, and Ollie Watkins a 2-pointer. So ended on 60 points. That gave me a pretty decent rank rise up to 820k, game week rank of 396k. And obviously I only had the 9 players. So I can't complain with that, where compared to a lot of people on free hit or wildcard or whatever they were using to get 11 players, I've done well here.
Those who listened to my stream on Friday night would have known I predicted for myself 36/37 points. I got 38.
Beat it.
So I was on court. It was the sort of game week that I expected. First game week since game week 8 below 50, but I kind of knew that was going to happen unless Harry went off big. But it did some monster scores knocking around. People obviously gambled on Lingard and Antonio, who, I mean, Harry's missed that one that hit the post at the end as well, which would have made it 4-2. Could have been a really big haul. Bamford, Rafinha, obviously popular. And the people went on the Brighton guys. So anybody went in on Veltman.
Correct. I take back whatever I said about him being a Twitter bubble. But I mean, he delivered an assist and a clean sheet. So,
do you know what? A lot of people were very quick to say, the Twitter herd mentality. And we've said that before, right? Listen, Twitter herd mentality won out this week, right? With people like Veltman and Leandro Trossard.
Correct.
Veltman's assist came from a place that those who bought probably saw the team and went, shit, he's going to play left-sided centre-back. He's going to be a 6-pointer or a 2-pointer. So to pick up the assist for Trossard's goal was great. A lot of people would have got Veltman and Trossard. That's the dream in a blank, right? I could definitely foresee that, especially those who free hitted, had Trossard and Veltman. So very well done to those people. That's 24 points off them two players, right? So that's where I've seen people in 80s and stuff this week done really, really well. Well done to them people. My week was Kane captain, Rafinha 8-pointer, Souček 5-pointer, which, I mean, Jesus, why did Sky have to have that camera angle? Because ordinarily that don't get picked up, right?
Yeah.
And Lookman assist as well, and Lookman really could have had some points, but I can't complain. Lookman had an air shot at one end, and then Rafinha went down the other end and scored. But I'd have preferred to have the Lookman points than Rafinha. Quite interestingly, Suj, my last 3 game weeks. Game week 27, I had a game week rank of 2.5 million. Lost 600 places. Went from 318,800 to 319,400. Game week 28 had a game week rank of 1.8 million and rose 19,000 places. This week, I had a game week rank of 1.8 million and fell 31,000 places.
Right.
331k now.
Okay. That's not too bad. On Friday, I bought Jesse Lingard at probably around about 2:30 or 3 o'clock. Obviously, the deadline was 6:30, and I thought, let me get that one move done, because Rashford to Lingard is a done deal. I know I definitely want to make that move. And then if I'm going to move Calvert-Lewin onto Kane, I can decide later on. And I did decide later on at about 5:30, 5:45, that I was going to buy Harry Kane. I was like, you know what, with the effective ownership being as high as it is, it's not the week to piss about. Let me just get Harry Kane in. So I came back. I had to go and pick one of my kids up from school, came back, made that second move before the deadline. And that was it. And then I thought, after I'd made the transfer, that I'd clicked on Harry Kane, make captain, Jesse Lingard, make vice captain, save changes. But I obviously didn't. I must have, when I clicked back on Jesse Lingard, hit made captain or something. It was an absolute pure mistake. Hit save, and I didn't realise till later on in the evening, when in the middle of the Leeds Fulham game, that I had Jesse Lingard captain. Oh, you know what? It is what it is. At the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen. Didn't expect
plenty of people who captained him this week out of choice and did very well.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he was. Had I not bought Kane, he would have been my choice, no problem at all. So it was fine. And then obviously when he put that first one in the top corner, you're thinking, "Fuck it, this is tasty." But yeah, so it was by accident. I'm gonna not lie about it. I would have captained Harry Kane because of the effective ownership. I've got away with one here.
Listen, I'm really pleased for you. It's like that time you forgot to activate your free hit, right?
17 points. It's reversed itself. So now I still have my free hit and need to figure out what we're going to do. We've got a nice international break now. I'm glad we've got it, because it's been quite intense from an FPL point of view with chips and all the rest of it, probably from the start of the year, really. So international break, there are people who still have free hit or wild card and someone triple captain. So let's quickly, before we get into the games, what are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of people were possibly going bench boost this coming game week in game week 30, I think, because of the way, obviously, sort of Villa, Fulham, Leeds, Tottenham fixtures fall in game week 30, plus the reintroduction of Man City assets, Bruno's, etc., etc. It's going to be a lot of benching headaches again in game week 30. And I think this is the one where a lot of people had identified, bench boost, then wildcard away. I'm still thinking to wildcard personally in game week 31, where you've got these really big fixture swings, particularly for Arsenal, Wolves, and I think Liverpool now as well. We can put into that group with Villa. Doesn't look quite as hard a fixture as it would have looked a month or so ago. So that's a nice turn for them. And they've got a great run in actually, Liverpool. And it's the second fixture of a good run for Chelsea as well. So I'm probably likely to add a Chelsea player in game week 30, then wildcard 31. I might even have more from there. What I wanted to talk about was the potential for these rearranged games and understanding for the remainder of the season what can happen. This isn't a what will happen. This is a what can happen, because the FA Cup results at the weekend have given us a little bit of clarity now. So for those who missed it, Leicester, Southampton, Chelsea and Manchester City have gone through to the semi-finals. Leicester will play Southampton in one semi. Chelsea will play Manchester City in the other. Why this is important is our understanding of what can happen for the two games that we don't know about right now, which is the Tottenham-Southampton fixture and the Aston Villa versus Everton fixture. So Tottenham and Southampton can, in theory, get arranged for game week 30 immediately, the forthcoming game week. It is a possibility. It's unlikely, in my opinion, but it is a possibility, obviously, with Tottenham now out of European competition. In theory, that can go into anywhere except, really, game week 32. Unless they decide to put Southampton versus Tottenham there rather than Southampton versus Crystal Palace. Now, game week 32, which is when the FA Cup semi-finals are taking place, looks likely to me to just be a normal game week where the games are going to be spread from probably Friday all the way to Thursday, one really long game week, a little bit like what we had in the restart period where we had FA Cup games at the weekend, people then caught up the midweek afterwards. It's likely to be like that. The only thing that I can see being different to that is if in that midweek after the semi-finals, they decide that they want to put Tottenham versus Southampton there rather than Southampton versus Crystal Palace. Whether they decide to make that choice, I can't tell you, but it seems to make more sense. Now Tottenham are out of Europe, just go Southampton, Palace. Everybody plays once in the same game week. Now, if Tottenham goes in there, Tottenham will have a double game week of Everton away and Southampton at home. And of course, Crystal Palace would blank. Aston Villa and Everton.
But we think that's a low probability. It doesn't. There's no logical reason for that to potentially happen.
Not really. Now Tottenham are out of Europe. It just makes sense to move the games that need to be, the 4 games that need to be moved from that weekend, just move them to the midweek. Now Villa and Everton can't go into that midweek currently because Villa are due to play Manchester City the weekend of the FA Cup semi-finals. That fixture now needs to be moved to the midweek, whereas Everton will still play Tottenham at the weekend. So the only way that Villa and Everton will go into that week is if they decide to move Everton to Tottenham in the midweek and then put Villa and Everton at the weekend. I think that's extremely unlikely. The other thing to note on Tottenham and Southampton, the potential for going in game week 32 is Tottenham have the Carabao Cup final.
So can I just, you said that they could move Everton, Tottenham to the midweek, which means then you can't play Southampton midweek, which means you'd have to try and play them now, basically.
No,
would be weird.
Not necessarily now.
Okay.
That would be to get Villa and Everton into that week.
Okay.
And it would be at the weekend. There is no need to force that sort of thing now.
No.
Priority, of course.
Because we're talking about 2 games here. Spurs, Southampton and Villa, Everton. That's what we've got to pick up.
The reason, of course, it will be Villa Man City in the midweek rather than Villa v Everton is because City's Champions League commitments, right? City's fixture has to take priority. So at the moment, it looks like game week 32 is probably just going to be a normal game week spread over possibly as many as 6 days. The other factors to consider why Tottenham and Southampton to 32 makes less sense than just going with Southampton versus Palace. Tottenham have the Carabao Cup final against Manchester City the following weekend. And I think from Tottenham's perspective, that's the 1 week they wouldn't want the fixture, right? The week before the final. So little bit like Tottenham and Southampton, I stand by my opinion, made far more sense to go into game week 26 than Fulham versus Tottenham because of exactly this. Southampton still being in the FA Cup. But I think it's pretty sure Southampton said, we don't want to play 3 midweeks in a row. We'd like some sort of break in here. So that's what happened. We do have one extra, obviously, additional free midweek. And this is what's really important to understand the possibilities. Now, currently, game week 37 is at the weekend, the same weekend as the FA Cup final. Now, the 4 teams that obviously would have their weekend game postponed because of the FA Cup final could just move to the midweek, similar to what can happen in 32. Therefore, it's just a normal game week for those 4 teams. It will just be spread out again. But Villa and Everton can go into that midweek with no problem. I think that's what's likely to happen now with Villa and Everton, is that it will go into the final available midweek. Now, it might not be game week 37, which I'll come back onto in a minute. Tottenham Southampton is not guaranteed to go into that final midweek, purely because Southampton, obviously, if they beat Leicester in the FA Cup semi-final, they'd have 2 fixtures then to rearrange. Southampton's fixture against Leeds.
Right.
Yep, them again.
So move
in
that
game week
into the
37.
into the midweek straight after. Okay.
So Villa and Everton, for me, the way it looks now, goes into the final available midweek slot. Tottenham and Southampton is probably dependent on the result of Leicester and Southampton in the FA Cup semi-final. Now, Leicester are obviously favourites for that perspective. So let's assume that Leicester win. Then I think, Tottenham Southampton goes there as well, no problem. But should Southampton win, then that leaves us with 2 possibilities for Tottenham versus Southampton. Game week 33, which currently both teams obviously blank in because of the Carabao Cup final. But it would mean that if they played in the weekend after that final, then only Fulham and Manchester City will blank. So those who are thinking of free hitting in that game week need to be aware of that possibility that Tottenham Southampton could very well end up in game week 33. The other one, of course,
it might not be worth free hitting, basically, is what you said.
The other one, which those who've still got their triple captaincy chip have really got their eye on, is the possibility of game week 34, because that would give Harry Kane a double game week of Sheffield United at home and Southampton at home. So Tottenham Southampton, for me, as it stands now, 30 is a possibility. 33 and 34 is a stronger possibility. 31 and 32 are unlikely. The reason 31 is unlikely is because Southampton have a Monday night game in that particular game week as well. Failing that, obviously, if assuming Leicester win against Southampton the semi-final, the most likely thing is it will go into that final game week. To get to 33 or 34, I think you probably need Southampton to beat Leicester in the semi-final. So
can I add one other thing? If they push it later to game week 37, which is 100% on everybody's minds, fans in the stadium.
Correct. So this is where it flips, where it might not be game week 37. So there is talk at the moment, and a lot of this isn't dependent on the Premier League. A lot of this is dependent on government. Government still allowing fans to go back in. So what they want to do at the moment is move either the game week 36 fixtures or the game week 37 fixtures to that final midweek. So every team gets to play a home game in front of fans. Now, what that will create, if that happens, is a double game week, most likely, of game week 35. And then that's where these fixtures would go, which most importantly would give Harry Kane a double game week of Leeds away and Southampton at home if it goes into 35, which is attractive enough. But what it will also cause, most likely, is doubles for the other teams that compete in the FA Cup final. So, for example, that could give Manchester City a fixture of Chelsea at home and Newcastle or Brighton away. For Leicester, it could give them Newcastle at home and Manchester United and Chelsea away. For Southampton, not great because you're looking at Liverpool away and Fulham or Leeds at home. And the missing one is Chelsea, which would be Manchester City away and Arsenal or Leicester at home. So for those still thinking triple captaincy, the honest answer is the best of that is probably still Harry Kane, especially if obviously City are still in the Champions League. Chelsea at home and then Newcastle or Brighton away. Yeah, it's a decent double. Of course it is. But, you know, at that stage, especially with Tottenham now out of other cup competitions, Kane will play twice, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to want to end his Tottenham career on a high, golden boot and all that. So I think as we get towards the end of the season, he's going to be smashing the goals in. So Harry Kane's definitely not leaving my team because he's going to want to leave his mark. It's interesting at the moment now. I personally am taking the view that we're giving too much emphasis to those 2 fixtures from a strategy planning point. It's good to know where they're going to be. Don't get me wrong, but don't break your team to try and do that, because we've done that with Aston Villa. A lot of people have held on to Aston Villa, hoping that you're going to get the Everton game in there somewhere or what have you. The reality is, since their COVID outbreak and stuff, they've been pretty average. They haven't been good, and we've holding on to the assets for that long. The likes of Martinez, I can understand, and Watkins and Target, they're not expensive. So I do get, they're not bad, potentially value for money, but they haven't been good. So whereas other clubs, you're looking at the likes of Chelsea and what have you, with since Tuchel's come in defensively and stuff have been so good. So I'm going to be wildcarding with the next 2 weeks, and I'll pay a little bit of attention, but I'm not going to build my strategy too much around just these rearrangements.
What's important to understand is if the 36 or 37 fixtures, and we don't have the knowledge right now of which, and it doesn't matter, by the way, because every team that's at home in 36 is also at home in 37. And obviously all those teams are away in 38, so they can move either block of fixtures. Obviously, if a double game week 35 does happen, and what we're potentially looking at here is 8 teams doubling, we're potentially looking at quite a sizable double game week all of a sudden again. Now, what's important to know about that is if that happens, 4 of those teams who double in 35 are going to blank in 36. That's almost certainly the way it's going to work. So if you assume, let's say, for example, that Manchester City and Leicester is the FA Cup final, City and probably Newcastle and Leicester and Manchester United will probably double in 35, but then blank in 36. So the idea, those who might still have wildcard and bench boost, you could, in theory, if it happens, wildcard 34, set yourself up for a bench boost 35, but come game week 36, there's every chance you're going to be left with sort of 6-7 players or so. So if you've got the wildcard, the free hit, and the bench boost, all of them left, I would not wildcard in game week 31. I would be holding on, I think, and trying to run through and just literally targeting these teams with the swings. So Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Wolves, depending on the order you want to go to, and just run through to a roundabouts 34. Now, there's another catch to this. We're assuming that if it opens up for a double game week 35, that it will be a double game week 35. What's to say it won't just be a blank? And so what I mean by that is the FPL don't change the dates. So at the moment, you've got 35, 36 is a midweek, 37 is a weekend, and midweek afterwards is free. What if they don't change the dates? And they say, well, 36 now, it's in the same time slot for that midweek, but instead of 10 fixtures, there's now 4. So it could be a blank. And therefore only 8 teams play. If they decide to do that, what we could then end up with is the biggest double game week you've ever seen in game week 37, which would involve 12 teams doubling. But all those teams that would double would blank the week before. It would be so difficult to manage.
Unless you had your free hit.
Unless you had your free hit. Correct. So, I mean,
and that's
there
17
again,
points on my free hits looking all right.
In that case, you could go, right, well, I'll wildcard in 35, free hit 36, the blank, and then I've got 12 teams double in 37, and I've already wildcarded to bench boost with them. So I think it's those with the majority of chips left should really have a strong consideration to just sit tight for the moment, because the gain at the end could be massive. You also have to understand there might be fuck all, because if these fixtures don't move, literally what you're looking at is at the end double game weeks for Villa, Everton, Tottenham, Southampton.
Okay.
And that's it. So there could be nothing.
But there's also not anything between now and then like massively appealing where you're like, should I use it now? Should I then? It's not, other than 33 when you're covering off the lack of City, Spurs or whatever else.
There's a lot of people who are setting up for a bench boost this week. And I think they should probably still go through with it, because you could hold off and it could still be that we literally just have Villa, Everton, Tottenham, Southampton, game week 37 have a double. And the only one that's particularly appealing from that is actually Tottenham, who would have Villa at home and Southampton at home. The rest don't look brilliant. I mean, do you want Southampton assets? Southampton's double would work great now, because Southampton have 3 good fixtures coming up in Burnley, West Brom and Crystal Palace. And I do think there's a small possibility that Tottenham Southampton could go into game week 30. If that's going to happen, we'll know before the weekend. Never mind, obviously, before the game week 30 deadline. So I think what will happen is at some point before the game week 30 deadline, we'll find out the TV picks for the rest of April. what that's going to do for us is at least confirm what game week 32 is going to look like. Gives us an understanding of the Tottenham Southampton likelihood. We'll either know if it's going 32, 30, or if it's going to be that later game week. But what happens at the end is probably not even going to be dependent on the Premier League. It's going to be dependent on the government. Because if the government say, no, sorry, that final game week where you were going to have fans in, sorry, there's too much protest going on in the United Kingdom at the moment, it's not happening, then those fixtures aren't going to move to 35 or 36 fixtures. And therefore, it's not going to matter. It's just being aware of the possibilities. I think for people like me and you, Suj, who have got, I mean, you've got the free hit left, haven't you?
Free hit and wild card.
I would have a second thought. I think for me, with just the wild card left, what I'll do is I'll still probably wild card in game week 31. And what I'm doing is looking to pair people. So, for example, I could go, say, a Ricardo Pereira from Leicester and Yannick Vestergaard from Southampton, and know that the way that's going to work, one's probably going to double, one's probably going to cover the blank. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes. Correct.
So you can pair the two teams that play each other in the FA Cup semi-finals. So the same applies to pairing Manchester City and Chelsea. That's going to help you navigate what happens at the end. But you still want to probably, for those wild card in 31, still want to be looking at Arsenal, Wolves, Liverpool, because that's what you can do, right? You can get bogged down and go, oh my God, the possibility of those fixtures at the end and what might happen is amazing. But then you miss the brilliant run for the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool beforehand and stuff. So Chelsea. Everybody's got to make a decision that's best for them. But genuinely, if I was in a position where I had everything left, I'd be keeping my fingers crossed that would manipulate unbelievably between game weeks 35 and 37, and it could.
Yep. Good. Interesting. That's a very concise and well-explained rundown. Let's have a talk about some of these games from the weekend.
Hopefully, I do think it's probably gone over a lot of people's heads, mate.
No, I mean, look, it didn't go over mine, and I'm the good barometer of the layman. So
everyone will get it then.
Exactly. Fulham 1, Leeds 2 was the first game of the weekend on Friday night. I feel like with the first two games, Fulham, Leeds, Brighton, Newcastle, what could have, should have happened if teams played out did. Leeds, when they play with high energy, they are hard to keep up with. And Fulham did struggle in this situation where you had Leeds at full pelt and Fulham not at full pelt. The only thing I'll say from this game, you'll remember the fake Suj Shah who put in the comments on your live stream, said that they were buying Joachim Andersen as one of their fake comments. And all I could say is I wish this fake person was managing my team when that goal went in. But
maybe this fake person also captained Jesse Lingard by mistake. Who knows?
May well have done. But in the end, for us, for the Bamford owners, Rafinha owners and so on, it played out and worked out quite well. And Leeds, back to their high energy, were good.
It's an interesting game because I was watching the first 20, 25 minutes and thinking this is the best I've seen from Leeds in a while, actually. Getting off that shitty Ellen Road pitch. They'd had a couple of goals disallowed. Luke Ayling marginally. Loved the hair celebration. Shame it didn't count, you prick. Rafinha was obviously miles offside, but they started really well. Bamford, who looked like he was going to be a one-pointer at one point, and he was really struggling, took his goal so well, obviously assisted Rafinha for the others. He put in a really gutsy forwards performance, which I think was particularly impressive, obviously having had the blow of not being in the England squad as well. He could have had a little sulk on, but he really put himself out there for the team. But then after Leeds went in front, something odd kind of happened in the sense that you got to half time and you were like, Leeds have played really well. But if I was a Fulham fan, I'd be thinking we should be winning this because they'd had 3 really good chances. Meslier had made 3 good saves. They'd obviously scored and equalised as well. And it was a little bit, well, how's that kind of happened? And then the second half started. Lookman had the amazing chance. We talk about fine margins. And literally 20 seconds later, Rafinha's danced through. He takes literally the only 2 touches he can feasibly take to find the net. Does so. And from there, they're relatively untroubled. Fulham had a lot of the ball. This was another rare case where Leeds had slightly less of the possession. But then I think we know that Fulham like to control games. They like to feel the ball, control the game. The problem they have is, of course, goals.
can't
And
score enough at
I'm
all.
going to be talking with Dara at the Tinkerman, a Fulham correspondent, as part of tomorrow's Clash of the Correspondents tomorrow with Adam Hopcroft. And I think one of the main talking points is going to be Mitrovic, because I think a lot of Fulham fans want him in the team. He obviously came on for Maja at halftime of this game, but they just, although he's the one that's most likely to get them 4 or 5 goals to the end of the season, I just don't think they're the same side when he's in it. I don't think they're as good. I don't think they maintain that control in the same way or the threat. The problem they have, and if they go down, everybody thinks they're better than Newcastle. If they go down, it's because they're not scoring enough goals.
Correct.
Decordova-Reid, Lookman, Cavallero have 12 goals between them. Nobody else has got more than 2. Mitrovic scored twice, ironically, against Leeds in game week 2. Maja got the double against Everton. Hasn't scored since, although very nearly did in the first half of this one. But I think when Mitrovic is on the pitch, they just get far too tempted to go, sling this in the box.
Whack it into him, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not quite right. Listen, there's no shame in losing to Leeds, right? If they come with that intensity. I mean, Rafinha got fitter the longer the game went on. He's a fucking Duracell bunny. He's what I imagine Riyad Mahrez would be like if he had a good few lines before kickoff. It just gets stronger and stronger. He has quite. It's a few times recently with him. I've gone. He's been quiet that first half, and then he's moved, like in this one, he moves from the right to the left. And I thought every time he does that, I think I don't like it. But he became more of a threat, and he just worked harder and harder. The game went off. Harrison played really well.
He did.
Also, it's the best I'd seen of him for quite a while. There's a few that had him as a differential going into the weekend, I think. By the end, I think Leeds probably just about edged this one. If Fulham were taking chances, they could have easily won this as well. They both walk into decent game week 30 fixtures. Fulham obviously at Villa, which we're told Jack Grealish will be back for, and that's going to make a big difference. We'll talk about them in a sec. Leeds have this brilliant fixture at home to Sheffield United.
Leeds at full pelt against Sheffield United. You could see a cricket score, couldn't you? Because Sheffield United with their low energy.
I don't think so on that pitch. And by the way, Sheffield United, the only FA Cup game I watched at the weekend was I watched the second half of Chelsea Sheffield United yesterday. Fuck me, they missed some chances at 1-0 Sheffield United. Honestly, McGoldrick's missed one from 6 yards out. Like, close your eyes and you can't miss. My wife would have buried that.
Nice.
I mean, I don't know about that, but
I think
could have
Leeds assets we're holding this weekend anyway, if people have got them in. Fulham now are basically in a 2-horse relegation race against Newcastle, in my opinion. Now the last spot's going down to the 2 of them. And Newcastle did themselves no favours against Brighton on Saturday, losing comfortably 3-0. This was the one that I had no coverage of, no players playing in, not obviously using a chip, and probably couldn't have gone much worse, really, based on the players that people free hitting did get in.
I had Lewis Dunk captain in Sky, so I don't really give a shit. No, I mean, this was as comprehensive as, if you didn't see the game, as it sounds. Brighton beat Newcastle 3-0 home and away. I think they outshot shots on target over the 2 games, 12-1 Newcastle. Newcastle's only real effort in this game was when Ryan Fraser hit the post. Completely dominant. Newcastle couldn't handle something that Brighton did very interesting tactically in the game, and I don't think any of us could have seen it coming. So when they played at St James's Park in game week 2, Maupay and Conley played like really narrow forwards with Trossard in behind. And it's difficult to remember back to September, but that's why prior to them playing Manchester United, where Trossard had all them chances that he missed, we were looking at him going, look at him in this hole here. His return's imminent and stuff. This was completely different. So March and Lamptey are obviously really important to the way Brighton were playing with wing-backs. So they went into this game with Moda, made his debut, Polish left-sided player, played left wing-back. Pascal Gross played right wing-back. But what Brighton did in Newcastle just could not handle it. When they were without the ball, Maupay and Welbeck played like auxiliary and normal centre forwards, basically stopping goal kicks coming out to the 2 centre halves, so Newcastle couldn't play short. On the ball, they went as far away as a strike partnership could possibly go. They literally went and played like wide forwards in a Manchester City 4-1-4-1 system. which left the central areas completely free. And what happened was Moder, rather than a midfield player like Trossard filling that space, it was Moder and Gross from the wing-back positions came in inverted and went and attacked the space. Moder should have scored twice in the first 5 minutes. He should have scored at least once. And even if you look back on Trossard's goal, which is obviously played from Veltman, who played a kind of, it wasn't even really left-sided centre-half. It was almost like left-back. It was basically a man-marking job on Joel Linton. Played the ball over the top. Trossard span inside. When Trossard hits the shot, look who's going to follow in. It's not Maupay or Welbeck. It's Gross, who's come from right wing back again to go and attack that space. And Newcastle didn't have an answer to it. What Brighton did is it basically went, you've got 3 attacking players. So Veltman went up against Joel Linton, who stayed really wide, which is why I think it looked like Veltman played left back as much as left-sided centre-back a lot. Whereas on the other side, Fraser floated a lot more. So Ben White, the space between Ben White and Lewis Dunk was quite tight. Perhaps they were wary as well of Fraser's off the ball running in behind to make sure that the gap wasn't as big that side, whereas you don't really see Joel Linton chasing onto them over the top. So White had Fraser, Veltman had Joel Linton, and Basuma made sure that the one runner from midfield in Almiron wasn't going to get on it. And what it left was Lewis Dunk as the spare man. So you would think that going forward, Brighton obviously had less against Newcastle, but because of the movement they had at the top end of the pitch, it pulled Newcastle all over the place and they couldn't deal with it. What would be scariest from Newcastle's perspective was once it went 2-0, they gave up. Like they made no effort to get back into that game. They accepted their fate that they were getting well beat by a team that was far better than them and were going into damage limitation mode. And that's a little bit scary.
We talked about the run that Newcastle had where they had to start picking up points. They now go into Tottenham, then Burnley, then West Ham, then Liverpool, then Arsenal, then Leicester, then Man City. By the time they get to that Sheffield United and Fulham last 2, they could be down, you know.
They could be down.
They could be down, you know.
But they won't be. They could quite conceivably win those. In my opinion, those next 3 fixtures, they could win all of them. If Wilson's back, for example.
If that's a massive if, and I agree with you actually because he's such a big player. But I don't mind if Newcastle go down, we can buy Callum Wilson. Brighton, on the other hand, now they also have a fairly tricky run. You know, I don't know if United, Everton, Chelsea as the next 3 make me want to dive into them, but they're starting to turn performances into results, and they've got good cheap priced assets or what have you. I just don't think now is particularly the time to be looking at Brighton assets.
Yeah, there's nothing of interest for Brighton now. This was it, really, if we're honest. Like if you've got the likes of Veltman, if you've still got Trossard, no one's saying bin them. It's absolutely fine. But I think you haven't watched that now and gone, oh, I'm going to buy them before they play Manchester United away and then Chelsea away is 2 game weeks after that. You're not going to do that. I think for those wildcarding in 31, if you want the likes of a Sanchez cheap or a Veltman cheap or something like that, I think it's still okay. But I'd be very surprised if I had any Brighton players on my wild card. I think they've done the business in the last 2 games. That if they'd lost that one and lost to Southampton, we'd be talking about this very differently. They're now 1 point behind Southampton and Burnley, who play each other in game week 30. So should they get a shock result against Manchester United, they're going to leapfrog at least one of them as well. And then they're away. They're probably 1 win left, Brighton, to stay up, and they've still got to play Sheffield United.
Yeah.
And that's probably what they're looking at. I think there's games afterwards, Leeds, Wolves, West Ham. If they need a result, I'm pretty sure they'd get them. I think they'll be okay now. Their goal difference is what, -4 or -5? I mean, you really shouldn't be in that trouble with that sort of goal difference. Yeah. I think it highlights all the XG points, whatever models have suggested that Brighton shouldn't be down there. What most of us have seen on the pitch with our eyes has suggested that Brighton shouldn't be down there. And they'll probably cause some upsets between now and the rest of the season. But from an FPL perspective, no.
Nothing.
Same applies to Newcastle, by the way.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Sunday games then. Both of our clubs in action. West Ham 3, Arsenal 3. In what was the game of the weekend. Real crash bang wallop. Enjoyable watch, really, to be honest with you. It wasn't in the sense that it was quite frustrating in parts, but I was really surprised in the first 5 minutes. I didn't expect the game to start in the way it did, in the way that Arsenal ceded both territory and possession to us. West Ham, like I'm used to, especially against the bigger clubs, for the first 10 minutes in both first and second half, we'll back off a little bit, let them have the ball, cagey, and then break into the game. They gave us the ball and territory, and I was like, all right then. And I felt that the next 15, 20 minutes after that, we kind of were like, well, if you're going to give us the ball and give us the territory, fuck it, we'll have a go. And I was so impressed with the energy in the first 25 minutes and the work rate and the hunting. And Arsenal just had nowhere to go. We created our own opportunities and we created our own goals. So good in the first 30 minutes. And then completely changed, completely gave them possession and territory.
But why did it change?
Well, the personnel didn't change, did they? So it's really mentality and mindset of being 3-0 down. Now, don't get me wrong, Arsenal woke up, right? They well, hang on a second, right? This is different. But once you're 3-0 down, it's a bit easier to have a go. Odegaard got on the ball more, Saka got on the ball more, but we stopped playing with energy. We stopped closing them down, stopped pressing, let them make sideways moves slowly and surely, and let them have a bit of slower and better build up. And it was really frustrating to watch in the sense of the way that we changed our approach to the game, because you saw in flashes later on in the game that when we broke, we still created chances. If you take the number of chances over the course of the game, I mean, I think we had 15 shots, they had 16. Almost all of ours were in the box. Half of theirs were from outside the box or from distance. We were still causing them trouble. Lingard, I mean, we didn't get the advantage, could have broke into the box. Rice made that bursting run. Antonio had that chance. Souček could have had a couple of goals. So they had that second 60 minutes, they had all of the possession with some build-up that gave us some scary moments, which were almost self-inflicted. Yet when we decided to put our mind to it, from 55 minutes to 65 minutes, 70 minutes, for example, we cause them problems. And you're like, look at what we can do when we get Lingard and Benrahma running at them and Antonio up against Mari. It's not even a competition. Yet we didn't do it for 60 minutes. So I enjoyed it. It was fun, right? You
spent most of that shitting yourself.
The second 60 minutes was real frustration. I'll tell you what happened. I watched the first half at home. I had to go at half time. I went to the office around the corner. It's literally 2 minutes from the house to watch the second half because I got kicked out because I was shouting too much at the TV. My kids were like, go. And then they were not letting me watch the game in peace. So it was like, Dad, you're shouting too much. I was like, well, you guys are making too much noise. I'm like, fuck this. I'm out for the second half, and watched it in a bit of peace and quiet. It just was one of those games. I think net, as good as Arsenal were in the second 60 minutes and controlled it, we still should have won that game because we still created enough chances and didn't take them.
Yeah, but be honest, when it went 3-3, you thought you were fucked, didn't you?
Well, do you know what it is? When it went to 3-0 and 3-1 and even 3-2, Arsenal are pushing, you've got to be good on the counter. Like, you let them push, that's fine. But when we get the opportunity to counter, let's counter. And we didn't counter. So I felt at 3-2, either it will go 4-2 or 3-3. But I felt 3-3 was more likely because we weren't doing an effective job of countering against them at all.
I think the
crazy
change in the game was more about Arsenal than about West Ham. I think Arsenal were so bad in their opening half hour or so, like dreadful. Tottenham levels of dreadful. They were really, really bad. And I think what happened was there was a change that just ironically just came about because of Arsenal's first goal, where Chambers, I think, was selected for two reasons. One, a little bit more height on set pieces versus, say, Bellerin and Cedric. And two, I think a little bit more protection in that channel in case Cresswell played ones over the top for Antonio to get one-on-one with David Luiz. And it was just a little bit more of an insurance. Ironically, at least one of the goals, Lingard's goal, obviously came from that side. Antonio on the left into Lingard, didn't it? But I think Chambers got forward for the at that point, you fuck your defensive stuff. You're 3-0 down, right? Like what Newcastle didn't do. Arsenal had a go, right? They scored, which came from a Chambers cross. And in the second half, he was like, well, I'm going to play like Cafu. That worked. It's basically what happened.
Yep.
And it just pushed you really deep. The key for me, above all else, Odegaard.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Do you know, it's hard. He controls the game, the tempo. He's got great vision. He's got a range of passing. I think Odegaard is very, very good. I don't want to say it because when you make comparisons against the greats, then people are always like, oh, you're mad. But he's De Bruyne-esque in the way he approaches the game. He's got head up, looking, vision, good passing range. Obviously, I'm not saying he's as good as Kevin De Bruyne, but it's the style of player that he is. He'll go left, he'll go right. I really like Odegaard. I do, but I don't know if I would buy him in FPL. I don't know if he'll have the output. He'll definitely control the game, but I don't know if he'll have the output.
I'm not sure from that perspective. I could make a case to buy him at 0.7 more than Bukayo Saka, who had a great chance himself in the first half, if you remember, going on to a Lacazette through ball. So
he still shot from distance. I don't know if it was a great chance. He should have done better, but he was shooting from quite a way out.
That's a great chance, mate. That's a great chance.
Then he should have taken it further on. I don't think he did very well with it.
I think maybe he could have. But I think it's things like that would make you still go Saka over Odegaard, I think, personally.
Yeah.
But what he's done, the whole creativity issue they've had, they've now got it. They've got it because of him. Little things like the equalising goal, which I love from Odegaard's perspective, because you can play the ball into Pepe's feet, and what's Pepe going to do? He's going to do a couple of lollipops. You know he's desperate to get it on his left foot and try and go for the far top bin. You know that's what he's going to do. He plays the pass, making Pepe's decision for him. Use your right foot. And Pepe actually put in an outstanding cross, which was almost undefendable for Lacazette. I just think his link play was so good. I spoke after the Tottenham game saying he seems to find everything he does, he looks like he's got time. He can slow the game, he can quicken the game, and he played a serious tempo in that second half, which meant that Arsenal maintained tempo throughout. Terrific footballer. He solved their creativity issues. He's playing so well at the moment that they might not be able to buy him, in my opinion. But someone else might.
The thing is that before he came in, Smith Rowe was doing well. You know, it wasn't like Smith Rowe was suddenly a slouch. He'd been performing quite well, and Arsenal had been getting better. And I felt like Smith Rowe could do what Odegaard has done. Odegaard is a bit better, but he's more experienced, isn't he? At the end of the day,
Smith Rowe is a really, really good link play. He's a really good understanding of how positioning works, despite his young age. Odegaard has a bit of the X factor, though.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's not to say Smith Rowe with a bit more experience couldn't develop it, but yeah, it's really interesting. Let's bringing it back down to FPL after all the heart rate and racing of a crash bang wallop game like that. I mean, from West Ham, there's still, if you're going Antonio, Lingard, Souček, even Cresswell was still whipping in balls. They're all still perfectly viable. And even at Arsenal, if you're looking at Saka, Lacazette, I think Saka and Lacazette are the two that stand out. And Tierney had a decent game as well. They're all viable options.
What about Blank Gameweek?
Not for me. Too much money, James. It's too much money.
His biggest contribution to that game was the celebration at 3-0 when he'd already been substituted, wasn't it? It was the first time I noticed him.
Yeah, watching that game, there was times where I was like, shit, Lacazette's getting in dangerous positions, or Saka or Odegaard, like you mentioned. There was never a moment where I was like, shit, Aubameyang is going to do us in behind or whatever else. Never, hardly. It's just too much money. It's not interesting for me at all. Not interesting.
Arsenal have a decision to make in the summer on Lacazette and Aubameyang. And I think one of them needs to be sold.
If it was me right now, I'd sell Aubameyang.
Well, there is a case to say that Aubameyang is, to be honest, it's probably, if you want to get a sizable fee for him, it's probably last chance.
He's 32.
People would still want him.
Yeah,
Barcelona could be £1 billion in debt. They still pay the money for him.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't pay crazy money for him, 60 odd million. He's done well for them, lifted a couple of trophies and whatever. If they picked up 35 or 40 for a 32-year-old, you'd take it. You'd bite your hand off.
I think from an FPL perspective, you want him through the middle, don't you?
No.
The thing is, I think you do now. With the thing is, Adam put this really well when he came on COTC at 350. He said basically the problem now is with Aubameyang and Lacazette, you go, okay, yeah, there's more goals in that team, but it removes one of the creative players. So if you've got three behind, which is like Saka, Smith Rowe, and Odegaard, or Nicola Pepe, who even Willian, whoever the three is going to be behind that, Aubameyang doesn't have the creativity. He's got obviously the electric pace to running off the ball. And at the moment, Arsenal having three kind of creative players behind is just giving them more. It's
Correct.
giving them more for whoever plays through the middle. So there's no guarantee at the moment that he should. I mean, on what you've seen now, it should even be in the team. They took him off. They were losing and they took him off. That speaks volumes, mate.
I think if you're ranking their forwards, I mean, Lacazette is in form. Martinelli is the future. And then you've got Aubameyang below that. I think he's there because he's captain and all the rest of that stuff that goes with it, or Xhaka or whatever. Aubameyang's club captain, but I don't think he should be in the team.
The thing is, though, he's 11.5 million, which is absolutely too expensive, no doubt about it. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't buy him. And that's because Aubameyang, particularly in home games, is capable of having those kind of 2 goals and assist sort of games. And the 3 home games they have between game weeks 32 and 35, 3 in a row, Fulham, Everton and West Brom smell like they can be returns. By the way, the away game in the middle of that's fucking Newcastle as well. And they've got Sheffield United before Fulham. What a run of fixtures that is. And therefore, if you're not going with other premiums, he's still viable.
But I think most people probably are. Jesse Lingard, on your thoughts? He's basically OOP in the sense that he's playing as a second striker, stroke really attacking number 10. 6.1 million in form. I mean, he took his first goal so well.
He was so dominant in that opening period of the game.
I love the way he runs with the ball.
Yeah, he's very direct.
Like a horse, like just really nice running style. I love it. And he's got a bit of swagger about him. He's got touch. Yeah, Jesse Lingard is for me now. He's played 7 games. He's blanked in 1, and he's returned in all the others.
Do you think that's likely to continue?
Yeah.
Well, you would say that. You accidentally put the fucking captaincy on him, mate.
Mm-hmm. So he's played, 7 games, blanked in 1. 3 double-digit returns.
8 points per match is not a joke. It's the sort of number that you will see for someone who plays once a season and flukes an 8-pointer in their 1 appearance of the season. 8 points per match is no joke. He's what is it, 10 games or so now?
He's almost a attacking creative threat. Everything goes through him. He's involved in almost all the goals we're scoring at the moment. So, yeah, I think he's one that if you haven't got him, looking at our fixtures, there's a couple of difficult games in and around, but it's kind of difficult game, easy game, difficult game, easy game. He's worth it.
Seven games. Lingard, 6.1 million. I mean, 8 points per match at 6.1 million. Who am I to argue? What I would say, the next 2, Wolves and Leicester particularly, I mean, they don't jump out sizable returns to me. I think if you've got, great, but it's another one you're not going, oh yeah, now's the... A lot of people are going to be looking for 1 week punts this week, and I don't think picking a player against Wolves is what you want to be doing. But if someone wants to buy him, particularly those who've used the second wild card, I ain't going to put you off, because West Ham's overall run that's left for this season is good.
It's decent. Yeah. And then last but not least, let's talk about Aston Villa Spurs. I'm be honest with you, I didn't watch it. Was too exhausted. I'll be honest with you. I was listening on the radio, and I was very satisfied when Carlos Vinicius was the first goal that went in, because no one had him. No one thought that he's the 1 week punt.
No, nobody would have thought. Nobody was buying Carlos Vinicius. Prior to the Zagreb defeat, do you remember what I said to you about the game?
Prior to it, if Jack Wilshere plays...
Jack Wilshere even, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jack Grealish. I mean, think about it, because I heard his name in the Bournemouth Southampton game. I was like, fuck me.
You heard it. No one saw it.
Nah. If Grealish plays, they'll win. And if he doesn't play, you'll win. That's what you said.
Basically that. and I influenced my own brain because of how bad Tottenham were on Thursday and the low ebb we was at. Villa without him are average, and I might be being kind saying that, actually. They were wank. They were the better side for the first 25, 30 minutes. And then you reflect on it at half time and you go, what do you mean Aston Villa didn't have a shot in that half? They must have, surely. I felt like rewinding the whole half again. But actually, the first time round was punishment enough. So I obviously wasn't going to do that. They didn't have a shot in the first half. What? But they had the majority of the game. They got themselves into good attacking positions. But actually, no, they didn't have a single shot. That wasn't because of good defending by Tottenham. Just because of poor final ball from Aston Villa. The goal come about because of a ball over the top, which Vinicius does well to run onto. But essentially, Lucas Moura, who quite rightly was man of the match and is the only Tottenham player to come out of the whole kind of week or two period with his stock up, was brilliant. He's a little live wire when he's like this. He's really fit. There's a rare 90 minutes for him yesterday as well. Gets on the end of it. Him and Kane link brilliantly. He's unselfish at the end. Vinicius can't miss. What I liked about Tottenham's performance, and I'll speak about it more tomorrow, is actually, after we went 2-0, we played well. Actually, we never looked like we was going to get a third goal, but was in complete control. We passed the fucking ball, Suj. It was quite nice.
It's very interesting. It raises an interesting tactical discussion that we won't get into heavy detail, but it's similar from the West Ham Arsenal game where you asked the question, how much of what West Ham did in the first 30 minutes was because Arsenal were rubbish versus how much of what Arsenal did in the next 60 was because West Ham were rubbish. By the same token, how much of what Spurs did, which was good, was because Aston Villa were wanked, as you described, versus anything else. So it is always two sides to the equation. They might have let you pass the ball, but you still got to pass the ball around and control the game, and you did.
Well, Villa, no pressure on the ball is one thing. I spoke last week about obviously how well Arsenal pressed Tottenham's left side. Villa didn't do anything like that. Obviously, look, there were changes in the Tottenham team. Joe Rodon was good at centre-back. Like, Sanchez had such a bizarre game because in the first half, he was so bad. Then he had a really good 25 minutes in the second half. Then he finished the game really badly again. But Rodon was almost unnoticeable, and I like that. I like that, I barely even noticed that he was playing. Nothing flashy, just fine. But one of the things Villa didn't have as well is runners breaking through from midfield.
Right.
So I remember I've spoken about the problem recently with Højbjerg and pressing, right? Well, Højbjerg looked great yesterday because he changed his positioning a little bit in terms of doing what I've asked, just protect them a little bit more, please. But I don't know if it's also a product of Villa because Villa didn't have any runners to go beyond.
Yep.
Like in Son, who played, it looks a nice enough footballer on the ball. Is that a better option for them than, I know Barkley's been out of form, but surely you want that creative player in the team without Grealish. I don't really get it. It was all kind of, they were nice to play against Villa.
Yeah,
and I think about them.
Yeah,
when I think about them in the start of the season, you think about that high energy. I'd spoken about them possibly being the best team in the league in transition, as in terms of how smoothly they move from back to front. They don't fuck about with it. It's like get it into Grealish and go. And he's stating the obvious. It feels a little bit like the Zaha Palace thing, to be honest.
It's very, very similar. What are your thoughts on Aston Villa assets now? Because a lot of people, Martinez, I think, you know what, he's fine, just hold. A lot of people have a defensive asset like a Konsa or a Target. Target for me, again, because of his attacking returns, I'm fine holding. He still did try and get forward a little bit. And then you're looking at Ollie Watkins, has got higher ownership as well, who always works hard and always puts a shift in. But if he hasn't got the ammunition, he ain't going to be much. Ollie Watkins for me might be expendable, but I will probably keep Matt Target. And I think people that have got the likes of Martinez will keep as well.
I think they're reasonable dependent on value. So, I mean, to be honest, Grealish could come back in and they could do really well. I mean, a Grealish Aston Villa playing away to Liverpool is not as bad as it feels right now. Go there with the team they've got at the moment. They won't do anything at Anfield. But with Jack Grealish, and it'll be Liverpool haven't won at home since God knows when, right? That's Liverpool's next home game. If Grealish is back, it might be a very different fixture. So I think, like, A lot of it's going to be value dependent as well. If you build up that value on Martinez, you don't want to sell. You know almost definitely you're probably going to have a double game week towards the end with him as well and stuff. And there are still a few decent fixtures in there. I mean, they've got to play Everton twice. It's average. West Brom, they've got to play. Crystal Palace have got to play. And there's obviously some other tougher fixtures in there as well. But I think, yeah, Target, Konsa, you can pick and choose whether you play them or not. That's okay. The attacking ones like Watkins and Bertrand Traore, I think it's expendable now. Watkins is harder to keep, but then with Grealish coming back, he could suddenly be value again, couldn't he? Yeah. Difficult one because they've got shit fixtures, really, Villa. Europe, and their season's finished, basically. They're not going to qualify for Europe now.
Spurs, I mean, Kane is Kane. He still will always pop up and can return. So Kane is going to continue to have high ownership. Sonny didn't make it, but you never know. He hopefully could be back after the international break. He's got a bit of time to recover now. Any other thoughts on Spurs assets that are worth looking at beyond those two? Wow. Now that we know maybe Reguilon's a bit injured.
Wow.
Bale, you think could and will come back into the team?
There's a real difference with the Newcastle game, I think. Now, whether Bale plays or not in game week 30, and it's worth. I don't have a problem with Mourinho leaving him out yesterday because of he ended up playing the hour in Zagreb. I spoke about it being a wet, heavy pitch, etc. We don't know what his recovery was like, so it didn't surprise me that he wasn't in the team. And actually, I wasn't that bothered that he wasn't in the team because I think Mourinho had to do something radical, which, by the way, essentially was a 4-4-2. Don't expect to see that till the rest of the season, by the way. But I think on Bale against Newcastle, and Newcastle's diamond, probably going up against Dummett, unless St. Maximin's fit, you can take more of a gamble with Bale. It goes back to that same thing that screamed about 6 months ago. The opposition's left-hand side is going to have a major bearing on whether Gareth Bale plays football or not, because the decision seems to have been made that he can only play on the right side, and that's it. So it's down to his recovery and potential opponent. If his recovery is good for Wales, I think he'll probably play at Newcastle, especially, as I said, if St. Maximin's not back fit, because you don't have to worry about what Paul Dummett's going to do. He's fine. And if it's Lewis instead, it's no different. It's fine. Bale can go and play up against that. The week after, playing against Luke Shaw might be more of a challenge, for example. And this was always going to be the problem. Luca Dean is the game afterwards. This was always going to be the problem with investing in Bale. In hindsight, those Burnley Palace fixtures was brilliant for him, right? But I think Mourinho needs to understand to be flexible and playing through the middle in certain games, because we want him on the pitch, really. The majority of games, he's going to start and he's going to play 55 to 60 minutes. And if you get in a situation like that yesterday, where we're winning, he ain't coming on. He's not coming on. I could have told anybody at half time, Bale will not get on that pitch unless Villa pull it round.
Yeah.
As long as Tottenham are in front, he's not getting on that pitch. And that's probably what you're looking at going forward. It's dependent on, for Newcastle, I think it's completely dependent on his recovery. But there's also the possibility that Mourinho goes, I'll play that same 11 again and not be fussy about it. Bergwijn was quite lively when he came on. That helps. You'll have Lamella back from suspension as well. Heung-min Son might be fit. Literally no guarantee.
None of them from an FPL potentially.
Lucas, I think, was as we'd suggested, a good little punt for the 1 week. But in terms of actually buying him for FPL, no, forget that. He's playing really, really well. Rodon is 0% owned, which might pick interest of a few people. But I literally feel with the Spurs defense, it's one bad game and he'll change it again.
Yeah,
Rodon's 5 million as well. I mean, there's better assets around at cheaper or similar price. No Doherty in the squad. Aurea and Alderweireld ill, but no mention of Doherty. And Reguilon obviously went off with an injury, so that's one to keep an eye on as well. In short, what you've got with Tottenham, keep for game week 30. What you haven't got, don't fucking buy, unless the Southampton game drops in there, in which case it is an amazing double and you should steam into something. There you go.
So that's a rundown of the games. I don't know how we've still been going for an hour when there's only been 4 games to talk about. Fuck's sake.
Let's talk about chips, blood.
Chips, which is making me hungry, and it's nearly lunchtime. So let's do a few Twitter questions. We can wrap up this pod, James, and then crack on. While I choose the 2 or 3 that we're going to look at, there hasn't been tons in this week, and it is international breaks. You know, we do next week a bit more of a Q&A or something.
I feel like we need to clarify the Snail thing.
FPL Finding Glory. Can the Snail be bribed, say for $500,000?
No, listen, what we've worked out, having spoke to Joe Amrabat man a little bit more, is like this Snail is fucking invincible. Like there is no stopping it. There's no stopping it with salt. There's no catching it in a glass jar. There's nothing. There's no, if you send it to the moon, brilliant, but it might come back from the moon. So yeah, keep your money. I've been beaten.
Good. So, James, do you want to tell everybody what they've got to look forward to for the rest of this week? And then we'll pick a couple of questions here.
I shall. Two Clash of the Correspondents this week. Adam Hotcroft and the Tinkermen tomorrow, Aston Villa versus Fulham, and Thursday, Aaron Lagle and FPL Pringle, Leicester versus Manchester City. We'll have Sky Fantasy on Wednesday. I'll be streaming on Friday afternoon. We have 5 podcasts on Patreon from intermediate tier this week as well. Our Q&A today. Tottenham tomorrow, which is going to be full of banter. We'll probably take a trip back to Zagreb, I should imagine, on that. Wednesday, bit of Planet EFPL. Jamie Roberts is one of our patrons from the Championship Express podcast. He's going to be joining me. We'll be talking about the promotion race, Gaffer Fantasy. On Thursday, we have a quiz, which is Old Firm and Premier League related. And on Friday, we're doing Sky Extra Time as well this week.
Nice. So there's some Twitter questions there for us, James. FPL Sponge, how do you both plan to switch off and unwind from FPL over the international break? Well, I'll be honest with you, mate. I didn't really know the schedule. But if you've got 2 Clash of the Correspondents, Jamie Roberts is on the Patreon pod this week for
I'll give you an easy
or
week.
whatever. I'm doing fuck all this week. And I did actually just book a cheeky 3 or 4 days away in Easter with the kids. They broke up from school on Thursday. So Centre Park's open, mate.
Oh, shit.
It is, but it's
so
a change of scenery.
She loves it, doesn't she? We went there, man.
Yeah, it is, but it's just literally a case of I need to go somewhere. I don't give a fuck where it is, and it needs to be.
No, that's how I felt last summer. Yeah,
I'm gonna get 3 days in and get some break from it. But yeah, looking forward to the break. Actually, what about you? You're just recording more pods, mate.
I'll have to get some guests, and I have to say this is the best I've felt on a Monday for ages. That weekend,
knowing that there's no intensity of like the content.
No, I'm doing all these pods, even if you ain't, mate. No, to be honest, the weekend was nice for me because I put Harry to bed and I watched Fulham and Leeds. I put Harry to bed and watched Brighton and Newcastle. Harry was asleep during the first half of West Ham Arsenal and he slept on me for the second half. And then she was in the bath with him while Tottenham was on and then put him to bed. So all that kind of watching wall-to-wall football, I didn't. As I said, I watched a bit of the second half of Chelsea, Sheffield United. I didn't watch any of the FA Cup games. I took a little bit of a break. The weekend didn't feel so intense to have to know what's happening with all 10 Premier League games. So I already feel like I've had a break. And I know I'm getting another good one this weekend. So I'm ready for the run-in, yo.
Good. FPL Comic Nerd. Hey, guys. Hope all is well. Is it more fun not supporting a team and just enjoying football as a neutral and just supporting your FPL players? That way you don't have conflicting emotions when your FPL players play your club. I don't
understand this question.
Basically, isn't life better when you don't support a team?
Oh, yeah. When they're shit. But what about the good times?
This raises a very interesting conversation that I really want to raise on Tottenham tomorrow, which is a message that I received from a Tottenham fan yesterday. And I really don't want to get into a debate on it now because it could go on forever. But the point was that as a Spurs fan saying, you're having a really shit season and you're 1 point behind us and we're having a really good season. It's like, but then hang on a second, you shouldn't be judging your success against us. You should be judging your success against other clubs like Chelsea or Leicester or whatever else. So is that your measure of success? But you have to be able, the point I'm making is enjoy your emotions and your football within your own context, not just always looking around your shoulder or over your shoulder at other clubs or over the fence at the next door neighbours or whatever. And at the end of the Arsenal game, I looked at it 3-3, yeah, fine. But this time a year ago, we would have capitulated, or we wouldn't even have gone 3-0 ahead. And it was just fun being involved in the emotion of the game. And I had to take, it was hard, don't get me wrong, but I had to look back and think, where were we a year ago and where are we now? And to be able to be involved in a game and have those emotions, I didn't have a year ago because getting spanked week in, week out. So I look back at it and I think, yeah, fine. I enjoyed that. So, I don't agree. I enjoy the ups and the downs, but you just got to be good at putting them into some kind of context.
Everyone knows how I feel. This is a fantasy game. When FPL can give anybody that moment I had in Amsterdam, come and see me in my DMs. Honestly, that's more the point, isn't it? How do you continue to enjoy being a football fan when you already know you've had the best moment you will ever have?
Yeah.
So for Man City fans after Aguero, does everything, even win the Champions League, could it match Aguero? No, you've already had the best moment you'll ever have.
Yeah, it's true. Let's leave one question, James, to wrap up this pod. Noor Azari, Lionel Trossard or Lionel Iheanacho? Both are in decent form. Iheanacho for me.
It's got to be Lionel Trossard because he actually played.
Yeah. Well, just as one moving forward, because Iheanacho did play at the weekend. He just didn't play in FPL and he scored again. I think Iheanacho at 5.7 million with the run that Leicester have. And Rodgers' comments after the game talking about how they play as a two and they're different strikers, I think he's got every intention of keeping two up top at the moment.
How good have they been recently, by the way? They went to Burnley and they struggled, and you looked at them with no Barnes, no Maddison, and genuinely thinking, they might fall out the top four here. And you're looking at them now and the way they've adjusted system with Perez behind that front two and gone, they're brilliant. By all accounts, they well deserved to win yesterday against Manchester United. Yuri Tielemans, he's having an absolute stormer of a season. I could well have Vardy and Iheanacho win our wild card. I think that's a possibility. That run they've got, West Brom, Palace, Southampton, Newcastle, between 32 and 35. Fucking hell. And the last one of that could even become a double yet as well.
Yeah, I think in answer to an A or B, Iheanacho all the way. Whether or not, I don't think I'll be selling Ollie Watkins this week because they've got Fulham, but the week after that, if I am on wildcard or I start tinkering around with my team, I think Iheanacho for me is a good option. And look, he's cheap, 5.7 million. The odd week that you decide you're going to bench him or he doesn't play or get any minutes, it is what it is, right?
They've got a tough run of fixtures actually as a whole. What's left Leicester, like they've got City and West Ham next, and they finish with United, Chelsea, Tottenham. But those four fixtures in the middle, you couldn't ask for four better fixtures than that, unless you put Sheffield United in there, basically.
Yeah. There we go. I think that's covered off most of the talking points. We have answered some other thoughts around wildcard and when's a good time to play it and that kind of thing as well, James. Nothing else to add?
No, not particularly. Just understand kind of what we said earlier, that there are different things that can happen. If someone's saying to me, what do you think will happen? You need to ask the government. I don't know. The only thing I can say to you with confidence is that I think Villa and Everton is now highly likely to go into whatever that spare midweek is, whether it's 35 or 37, and Tottenham and Southampton is probably going to be the same.
And on that note, if you are interested in our Patreon podcast, we'll probably, if you want to jump in early, do. Otherwise, next week's the start of a new month. You can jump onto those as well. I don't think you're giving enough credit, James, to the additional advanced tier stuff that we're knocking out as well now. It's almost like we're getting to the point where you have your own football news wire service. James is doing videos about the daily stories, articles, FPL stuff. It's getting quite involved. So come and have a look if you enjoy it. It's only a monthly rolling kind of 15 quid, whatever it is. I don't even know nowadays. £1 million. £1 million. We'd love to have you as part of the Planet FPL community. Stay safe wherever you are. We know the vaccines are getting out there, James. Touch wood, they'll be everywhere. You're staying indoors. You're immune.
What makes me feel like you're higher up that food chain than me?
Because I'm 4 years older than you, so they're going in age order, mate.
Yeah, it's a good job they ain't doing it on looks then, isn't it?
There we go. Stay safe, patrons, wherever you are. I hope you had a great game week. Chat for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man, child.